Greetings, everyone. We want to welcome you today to the We Are Flora Pearl podcast. I am your host, Latasha J. Humphrey, founder of the Flora Pearl Foundation, Incorporated. I am super excited to get into this podcast today. But before we get started, we want to let our audience know that this podcast is being brought to you by the Flora Pearl Foundation, where our vision is bridging the gap, building a legacy. Our mission is that we are a 501c3 community-focused nonprofit mentoring organization building healthy relationships and partnerships between women and girls through education, community service, networking, unification, and career planning. Our inspiration is Flora Pearl Humphrey. She was my paternal grandmother, and although she passed away in 2001 of a massive heart attack, what she taught me and my family was about faith, family, and community. And that is where I draw my inspiration from. Now, audience, I have the pleasure of introducing to you a beautiful gem who has an amazing her story. She is a woman who has strong faith and vision. She is one who walks in purpose unapologetically. The first time that we spoke, we talked for over 3 hours, and I cannot wait for you all to meet her. So without further ado, I present to you Yamika Brandon. Hi, Yamika. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing well.
Awesome. Well, it is such an honor to have you with us today. And if you would, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
All right. Hi, my name is Yamika Brandon, and I'm honored, first of all, to just have the opportunity to be on the show. I'm humbled, I'm thankful, and I'm honored. Just a little bit about me. My career in the past has been, my professional career was being an agent broker in the healthcare arena. I'm a licensed agent broker in Texas. But recently, I took a dive into something new. Birthing out a nonprofit organization that God placed in my heart over 10 years ago, honestly. And it has just been something that He has just been perfecting in me over the years. It is the core of really who I am and really what I see as being the most important things in my life, which is my relationship with God and then also my children. As a mother of 6 children, I have 5 girls and 1 son. As a mother of 6 children, and then as my love for Christ, I believe that God positioned me and took me through experiences to birth out what He's about to do in this nonprofit.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we want to go ahead actually and segue into the topic as it relates to Be Lifted movement. And so I did have an opportunity to go on your website, and I see 3 key words that stood out as it relates to them being fundamentals. And that was learn, share, and practice. And so if you would, Yamika, just share with our audience what Be Lifted movement is, and with those 3 fundamental words, kind of what is the concept of those words?
Well, the nonprofit itself is about making Christian leaders. I believe that leadership includes being well in all areas of your life. We can call ourselves leaders. We can say that we're leading and we're going forward and we have the front foot out and, we're pulling people along. But while all along we're saying we're leaders, we're suffering in our faith walk ourselves. We're not spending the time that we need to with God, or our families are being torn apart on the insides of our homes. We don't have good relationships with people that we love. And then our finances are under attack. We're living paycheck to paycheck. We are struggling financially. It says, over 75% of Americans don't have a savings account, and most of us live from paycheck to paycheck. I know myself, I'm included in that percentage, and I'm tired of being included into that percentage. So you got your faith, your family, your finances are under attack, and let's not forget about our health. The fitness of our lives is under attack. That is the fitness of your physical body, which we can see that in our church is so prevalent today. That is the fitness of our minds. We can see that also so prevalent today as people are losing their minds, shooting and hurting their loved ones, having domestic violence. Domestic violence rates are up because people are cracking under pressure. So you have the fitness of your body, the fitness of your mind, and then you also have the fitness of your spirit. God said that we should love him with our whole self. And so with those four areas of life, basically learning, sharing, and practicing. How can we learn? It says that my people, we suffer from a lack of knowledge. We need to come into a place to where we're able to learn. We need to come into a place to where we learn something, that we become so confident in what we're learning that we're not afraid to share it with other people. And then once we begin to share it with other people and we're walking in a place of unity, we practice daily what we've learned. And so what the question is, what is Be Lifted movement? What are we learning? What are we sharing? And what are we practicing? And it's simple. We are learning how to love one another. We are sharing the love of God amongst each other. We are practicing our love walk amongst each other every day by giving of ourselves. And so as we, basically those three things, it is a program that God has birthed out of me. I've written a curriculum that's over 60 hours, basically an associate's degree at a typical university in our country. But I've written a curriculum that God has birthed out of me over the years, that has broken down the Word of God to where we can actually put it into action, to where we learn the Word of God enough that we're confident enough to share it with one another, share it with strangers, and then also where we become the Word of God in the earth.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's really good. And I wanted to touch on, so you said that even with the curriculum that you wrote, you said it is being shared at a university, or?
Well, the curriculum that I have is over 60 hours. And
Got
60 hours
you.
is the equivalent to an associate's degree at a typical university.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so
Okay. No,
when I
that's
look back
that's
on
pretty
it,
deep. But no, that's really deep. With that is so true. And so with that, like even what you have coming up, I know you and I had the opportunity to speak on it, as it relates to Be Lifted movement, and what even with the curriculum and also what you have coming forth. Is there anything you wanted to touch on about that right now?
I think it'll come up really as you begin to dig and kind of ask some questions.
Okay.
The way you put your questions kind of pulls stuff out of me. So definitely, when I find another opportunity, I'm gonna go into a little bit more depth.
Okay, that works. Well, I know you mentioned even before, leaving corporate America to be able to walk in purpose. And so I wanted you to share, how was that experience when you got ready to leave, and you were just like, okay, this is what I know, I believe, I prayed about it, and this is what I'm to do in this moment. How was that experience? Just how did you feel in that moment?
Oh my goodness. So really, when I left corporate America, I was at a place in my life to where I needed God to show himself to me. I was on my sixth child at that point. And so let's rewind just a few years back. I had gone through a divorce with my second husband, and he was a minister, great man of God, but for whatever reason, maturity on both of our parts, we didn't make it. And so my heart was broken because I had been married to the dope dealer, and now I was married to the minister, and I was disappointed. And so when I came out of that marriage, as when I finally did come out of that situation, I ended up being pregnant. I found out that I was 2 weeks into my pregnancy, I knew, like, after you've had as many kids as I've had, you kind of know when you're pregnant.
Okay.
I'm like, Jesus, this is not happening. I'm about to get a divorce from this man, and I know what I'm feeling. So I went through this period, and this is with my fifth child at the time. Her name is Amora Grace. Amora being love. Amor means love in Spanish, and then grace, the undeserved favor that God gives us. And so I'm made up my mind. I'm coming out of this marriage. I'm not going to be married in this marriage anymore. I have a made up mind. And I've already backtracked and found out how I got in the marriage in the first place. A lot of times, we as women find ourselves in relationships and in marriages that God never blessed, that God never put together. So if the Word of God says that what God puts together, no man shall be able to come in between it, not even you, your mama, or your husband. Nobody can come in between what God put together. But the things that we put together, there must be some other marriages being put together by ourselves, through our flesh, by the enemy. However it's being orchestrated, it lets me know that there are some marriages that can be split apart. And so that's what happened with me. Now, after I had Amora, I ended up just being tore up at that point. Here I am with my fifth child. I'm divorcing a man of God who was a minister. I went back to my old church, and my pastors embraced me. Pastor Mark Graham and Linda Graham in Wichita Falls at Overcoming Word. They embraced me, and they put me into a position like a prodigal son. And so I began to start growing myself in God. But then what happened in that is, even though I was growing with God, I was broken inside. I was doing all these great things for God. I was learning His Word. I was growing closer to God. I could feel His warm embrace, but I was broken inside. Something was missing. As a woman, something was missing. And so, the same way God has a plan for us to give us a hope and a future, the enemy has a plan for us as well. And with the next couple of years, I went through a relationship with a man who portrayed himself to me as a professional, but all along was living a criminal lifestyle. And he is the sixth baby's father. And so he had a heart of gold, but because of his past and his hurt and all of the situations he went through, he really took me through a relationship that was very hard. I went through a situation where I was celibate. And so he ended up actually just taking me through a very embarrassing time, and I want to take this opportunity to encourage women who have gone through embarrassing situations and relationships with boyfriends who maybe embarrass them on social media or out in public. Because I was celibate, I ended up taking all these pictures and, showing parts of my body that I shouldn't have shown. Now, mind you, I'm at church, and I'm a prayer warrior, and I'm on staff. But I'm sitting up in here posing because, remember, something is missing. And I knew something was missing in me. And it was that innate hunger that we have to be, needed by a man, to be needed into a relationship. And so, basically, long story short, I ended up falling away from God. And in the midst of that, God still promoted me, because remember, He gave me instructions to name my little girl Amora Grace. That is love of God, uncommon favor. And right in the midst of me falling away from God, after He took me in by pastors, put me on a pedestal, put me in a position, I still fell away from God. Why? Because of that innate feeling of something missing, wanting to be needed by that man. And even though I got drugged through the mud in that situation, somehow God orchestrated it to make me want Him all the more. And it's like something was made up in my mind that said, I'm not ever gonna leave God again. That bad relationship, that bad experience made me make up my mind that day to say, I'm never leaving God. I want to see God like I've never seen him before. And as I began to pray and like, I ended up being pregnant again in this relationship with this man that I shouldn't have been in. This is not my husband. This is me backsliding. This is me after, celibacy, not ever sleeping with somebody other than who I was married to since I had been saved in my early 20s. I had given my life to God in my early 20s. Here I am in my 30s. Now I've completely backslidden. And after I had the sixth child, her name is Amazing Love, I needed, the only thing that was going to save me was some amazing love. And her name is spelled Auhmazn, and then her middle name is Love. And to be honest, her father is the one that helped me come up with that name. Like I said, he was a great person, but because of his own situations, he took me through some situations. But her name is Amazing Love. And God told me after I had that baby, he said, I want you to not go to work. You're going to quit your job. Now, mind you, I'm making almost 6 figures a year. I'm this single black mama with 6 kids. I'm not on welfare. I got health insurance. I'm living the life. I got 4 cars. I live around the corner from the country club on a street called Tanglewood. I'm like doing my thing. And God tells me he wants me to quit my job. And so in the process of, deciding not to go back to work, I began to really burst out my passion. It was like when God told me to quit my job, I said, I'm going to do that because that's what I hear his voice saying. That's what I hear him telling me to do. And I know that if I don't do what God tells me to do this time, I'm going to make it harder on myself.
Right. Yeah.
So I made up my mind and I said, I'm leaving it. I didn't think about what am I going to lose? What about this? What about that? I stopped thinking about my position in corporate America. And after fasting and praying, I went on a 21-day fast. And after fasting and praying and getting confirmation from God that that's exactly what he wanted me to do, I felt a peace come over me. And I started making plans to stretch out my investments and money that I had put back. God had told me to live like an ant, for a couple of years. And so that's what I was doing. I didn't know why I was doing that. So when God tells us to do something, we have to be ready and willing to do what he's telling us to do. And so I had money saved. I had investments. I had some stocks and bonds and stuff. So I had peace. He said, the same way I promoted you in corporate America, I can do the same thing in the kingdom. You work for me now. And so here I am. Here I am.
Wow. And if you would, even with that, because that's pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful with you moving, and just being able to move through those things. And I wanted to know, if you could name, at least 3 things that have helped you to persevere, like during these challenging times, from just you leaving, with leaving corporate America, when everything else is telling you, okay, this is not working. What are at least 3 things that helped you to persevere?
Well, I ended up using my own system on my own self. It's like God said, you're not going to birth out a business. And I call it a business because I have to do that for the government, for tax purposes, and for the professionalism of the company.
Right.
But I'm birthing out something that's going to shift the church. I'm birthing out something that's about to shift you, your children. It's about to shift other women to do the same thing that I'm doing right now. I have lived by faith. And so when I say he made me walk out what Be Lifted movement is, I exercise very, I'm not going to say it was easy. It took a lot out of me to come from that independent woman. I got it made. I don't need a man. And to depend on God as my husband. Because you know how we are.
Mm-hmm.
We can do it ourselves. We don't need a man. But the devil is a liar. He is a liar. We were created for the man. And so the thing that has caused me to persevere is the vision that God has given me. He has given me a vision for what he wants to do in the earth and how he wants to duplicate the type of woman that I am in other women. He wants women to soften their hearts towards him, first of all, and then soften their hearts towards the men of God. Even if they're not perfect, he wants our hearts softened towards the man. Even when they're hurting us, even when they're lying, cheating, when they're not being what they're supposed to be. And when a man of God, even men of God, whether they're in church or not in church, when they come up to us, we as women, we got to start asking them and making sure, but what did God say? Because a lot of us will let that man come up to us and he don't even know what God is saying, because there's an assignment in the earth. And so my perseverance has come from my assignment. In the midst of me quitting my job, God said, I'm going to birth out a powerful prayer ministry in you that's going to invade the earth with my kingdom. It's going to take things back by force. It's going to take your families back by force. It's going to take your faith back by force. It's going to take the fitness back by force. It's going to take your finances by force, by staying fundamentally connected. So the vision that God gave me for my assignment in the earth is what helped me to persevere. And I believe that if we get a vision in our hearts, in our minds, that even if we don't have it on a board, even if we don't have it wrote out, but when we get that vision, it says that he writes his word on our hearts in the New Testament. And that's by his Spirit. Once we get a vision, and can't nobody erase that vision in you, and you know that you've heard from, when you know for sure that you've heard from God, nothing will be able to stop you. And so I would have to say vision, number one, number two, knowing that I heard from God about what I'm supposed to be doing, having a made up mind, being sure that it was God's voice that I heard. And then I would say the third thing would have to be my hunger to want to see the church operating the way that it's supposed to be. Not just the church that Christ is married to, but the church in me as a woman, the church in my sister as a woman. I want so bad to see women back in the homes with their children, working, doing their passions, doing what they love, doing that thing that's on the inside of you that makes you tick. You know, what makes you like, you can do it without being paid. That's what my grandmother always said. Whatever you can do without being paid for it. What's on the inside of you that you could do in your sleep? And that right there, me, because I want to see that with my own eyes in the natural, that's what drives me to keep going.
Yeah. No, and I hear you even with that, you know, because from what you're saying, basically, you know, it is dealing with the Proverbs 31 woman. And a lot of people, when they look at that, they tend to think, oh, she just, you know, she was this homemaker, but she was a businesswoman. It was pretty much all the way around. And really, we don't really, just on surface, when I've ever heard people initially talk about it, especially in past, just in years, long time ago, until like, you know, throughout more recently, really studying that out and seeing who she was and who, you know, who she is even to us, or who she should be to us. You know, she was a businesswoman. She was a, you know, in so many words to say, baller, shot caller. Like she set the standard or set the rules, you know. And I think that's a lot of even what you're saying. It's not so much just, you know, that you're saying give up on any dreams or passions that you have. It's making sure, of course, they're in line with, you know, who God has created us to be. And in conjunction with that, though, being able to have, to set the rules, to set your time, even with how you will administer it. And so, so with that, and I did want to ask, kind of follow up with this question, because and it relates to culture vibes. A lot of times as it relates to women of color, big brands. I read something before, and they said, the question was kind of like, why are they willing to profit from women of color, but not really stand up for women of color? And of course, you coming from a corporate setting, I know you've seen a lot where we have a lot of buying power, but we may not necessarily be represented in those owning power rooms. And so the question I want to ask, how do we continue? Because even with Flora Pearl, it definitely is the legacy that my grandmother left, but then that I'm continuing and carrying on, and even leaving a legacy myself. And so I'm very generational. When I think about being generational minded, where it's kind of like, how do we even bridge the gap, building a legacy, which is our vision. And so I wanted to ask you, how do we continue to make those strides to prepare the way for the next generations behind us, even as it relates to having that owning power?
We have to see ourselves different. Again, it goes back to vision. How are you viewing yourself? Are you viewing yourself as the employee or as the employer? Are you viewing yourself as the slave or as the master of your life? And so we have to change our perceptions. We have to change how we look at one another, because I can't sit up here and say, oh, I'm, Miss Entrepreneur. I got my own little boutique and I got my own business, but I'm in competition with my sister. That's not gonna fly. That's not gonna. It's not gonna take us to our next level. It's not gonna take us to where God needs for us to be right now in the earth. We have got to come together as women and begin to support one another. And that's one thing that my business also does. So with Be Lifted Movement, even though it's its own business, one of our things that we really strive to do is to support any woman who comes into my business, is to support her business as well. So if I know I need something that my sister over here can supply for me, I need to give her a chance so that she can perfect what it is God has put in her hands. We have got to stop coming into that place of mistrust. For so long, we've been competing for different things, competing for the best look, competing for the best car, for the best man, for that matter, or going after the same man, and comparing ourselves to one another. In Proverbs 31 and 24, it says that a true Proverbs 31 woman is a woman who undergirds other businesses. And basically what that means is she brings business to you. She brings business to the merchant. And we failed each other in that matter. And I think that as our daughters, as our children see us begin to love one another and embrace each other for who we really are, and not, and see, that's this Jezebel mimicking spirit that comes into the kingdom. When you're talking about women of color, and because we're both women of faith, we have to talk about the church. Because that's where God is going to judge us at first. It's inside of those four walls in the church. And it's so bad that this mimicking spirit, what it'll do is it'll take your vision and try to birth it out. That's like trying to take my baby and raise it. And we can't keep doing that to each other. It's just like the two women in the Bible where the king said to the two women, he said, well, I'm just going to split the baby in half, and then we'll just let both of y'all have a part of the baby. And the woman whose baby that it really belonged to, she said, no, just let her have it. Well, the king knew because of the wisdom that it was her baby. It's sad that you got women doing that in the earth today. Women will pretend they're your friend. They'll pretend to embrace you. And then the next thing you know, next week, they like birthing out something that is similar to to what you're doing, and you're looking at them like, am I tripping? Or is he trying to do what I just explained to them?
Right.
And so God, he said, am I so shallow that I can't give you your own baby? You're not barren. Your womb is not barren. And
wow.
So whenever I'm coaching women and I'm taking them through the program that God has given me, we go through a birthing process. Because what's going to last with God is those things that we birth out in the spirit. Your womb is not barren. And so I want to tell women that today. Your womb is not barren. Your daughters need to see you uplifting the love of God for your sisters in Christ, for your friends, and for your enemies, because the Bible tells us so.
Wow. Okay. Look.
Jesus.
That's good.
He's powerful. He can give you a baby.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. And it's when you even said that mimicking spirit, and even, taking what someone else has and trying to make it your own. And like you said, God is saying, do you not think, enough of me? Really? What he's saying, that I can't give you your own?
Exactly.
I mean, am I not that grand, that spectacular, that great? Because even each of us, you think about, say, our fingerprints. Each of us, we're different.
We're different.
We are.
The Bible says that we are significant in his plan. And so if you're significant in the plan, I'm significant in the plan, then why come you can't have a baby to come play with my baby? Why? Let's everybody birth out what God is telling us to do. Maybe right now you're going through a season to where God needs to get your spirit man healthy, get your mind healthy, get your body healthy, so you can birth out something that's not contaminated.
That's good.
With all of your hurt, with all of your mess, with all of your unforgiveness.
Yeah.
What if you're supposed to be going through detox right now, so that when you do birth out something, it's going to be bigger than what he gave me, because you waited and you listened to the voice of God.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Perfect. Well, we're gonna to segue into the topic as relates to the weight and with singleness, and I believe, Yamika, you touched on it earlier about there was a time, like even before, where you even in being married prior to that, but definitely having a time where you were celibate, and then having experienced the situation, but then coming out on the other side of it and choosing to once again to do it God's way. And so I wanted you to talk about, you being a woman of color, and just a single woman of color in this day and time, and how has that been for you?
Man, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a struggle. It has been a struggle because most people will stereotype me. They'll see me as a single mom of 6 children, and they'll assume right away that I've, lived this whole promiscuous lifestyle my whole life. And, especially when they see me in church, or they see me walking the anointing that God has placed on my life, it's like they look at me and they say, you can't be that powerful because of your past. I'm looking at these kids walking in the church behind you. I see no man with you. There's no way you can be walking as powerful as what it looks like. But God is no respecter of persons. And when I made up my mind, he placed something on the inside of me that no man could deny me ever of again. It's like that lady at the well who Jesus came. She said, come and see about a man that's told me all about myself.
Yeah.
And so because he came and supped with me, because he came and personally took me by my hand and has walked with me in this singleness, like, before, giving my life to God at such an early age, I met my first husband in college, and we were together for about 10 years. And we both had, well, I gave my life to the Lord, and then he later gave his life to the Lord. And I said, we can't be together no more. And, because I've given my life to the Lord. Well, he wanted me so bad that he was like, no, I'm going to church. And so he didn't have a heart connection with God. And I think he experienced some church hurt as well. Mm-hmm. But because his relationship was not personal with God, it was just let me get this woman. That was the only motive. Then it didn't last. His relationship with God didn't last. And so we tried for a long time, like I said, 10 years. And then I went into a place of celibacy, and I married my second husband. And then, I've already discussed how we went through the divorce. And then I tried to go through celibacy again, but that hole on the inside of me had just become darker and darker and darker. And I think as a woman of color, and like I said, I can't even ignore the fact as being a woman in church, just overall, period, it's hard. The stigmatisms, the way that people look at you, the way that people assume that they just know how you are already, and they don't know. They don't know your personal relationship with God. And to be honest with you as well about something else, it's hard as God has taken me through this process, and it's hard for me to say, I'm building my business, but then I have to go through a season where I had to use food stamps. Right. And so now here I am saying I'm this entrepreneur because I know what God has put in my heart, and I know what he's doing in me. But yet and still, I have to pull out that food stamp card at the grocery store so that I can take care of my kids, so that they can eat that night. I am tired of the government taking care of me and my kids. I am asking God to open up a door for him to bring the family back together, not even for really financial reasons, because women who connect with me and with Be Lifted Movement, we are going to bring enough money into our households that our husbands can go and stand on the front line and be before the elders of the city and make decisions for our communities again. So it's not even about the man coming into the home to help cushion financially, because we some go-getters. Women, we will make something happen out of nothing. So it's not even about that no more. Yeah. It's about having a unit. It's about, like, come on, we got to stop enjoying being single. So because I think we've fallen in love in a way with being single, and we've fallen in love with the idea of the enemy just basically putting it in our mind that you're this powerful woman because you got your own car, your own house, and you taking care of your own kids. Yeah. That's making us miss who God created us to be.
But do you agree though that there is a time for you to even be able to not just even look forward to the next thing? Because and I'll say for me, I experienced a time where it initially, like earlier on, that was what I wanted, because I thought that's what was supposed to happen. You definitely being in church, you're taught that that's the next thing, or you it's better to marry than to burn, or the different things like that are said. But to me, being single is not this holding cell for marriage. And I think we can get that it could be misunderstood. I don't think like you said, you don't want to be to the point where you're thinking, oh, I'm so independent, I don't need a man, I don't need anybody. But I wanted to know, do you feel like there is a time and place to enjoy right where you are? Almost like when Paul said, I'm content, when he wrote the letter to the Philippians. And right. He was saying, I know what it's like to have plenty, and I know what it's like to have, little. But in this moment, I'm content. Not that you're going to stay there, but can we be so so future minded, even thinking, okay, we got to get to this space to be whole, that we miss even where God has us in that moment. And so yes, I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Like, do you feel like though there is a time for you to embrace right where you are, even if that so happened to be single, is my point,
because you can't birth out what God wants to do in you until you become content where you're at. And that's the part of being hidden. You know, there's a book that I've actually finished, but I've just debated, and I feel like I'm not going to release it until after I get married. And it's called Hidden, But I'm Waiting. And so basically, the waiting part is not you waiting on that man to find you, basically. The waiting part is that period in there that God can work on you, that you can have your relationship with God, that you can have that time with him to groom you for who he's calling you to be, whether that's who he's calling you to be as far as a businesswoman, who he's calling you to be to your children as a mother, who he's calling you to be to your church, to your community, and most definitely, and I believe foremost, the front thing that God created us for was for the man. And see, a lot of people get uncomfortable when I talk about that, because, you know, I have to admit, even in my past relationships, and God knows I've had enough of relationships I can kind of see how I was overpowering. I had my own money. I did have my own cars. I had my own house. I didn't need a man. I didn't need him. Mm-hmm. Like, so I had no real submission in me to where I knew in my mind that I was created for the man. The man was not created for us, but we were created for the man. And so I believe, this is my belief, and a lot of people may not agree, but I believe in the order of submission in the New Testament, where it talks about, and it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. I always tell people, read that entire chapter and don't take no perceptions into it of what you think. Just read that whole chapter. And it talks about how Christ is the glory of God. The man is the glory of Christ. And the woman is the glory of the man. And then it also mentions in the Bible how the woman is to be over the children. And so you have that in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. And I encourage everyone listening to this to just go back and read that for time's sake. I don't want to read through the verses, but for time's sake, go read through that chapter. And then when you look in the Bible in 2 Corinthians 3 and 8, it talks about the ministry of the Spirit is more glorious than that of the Old Testament. And just to quickly go through that, basically, that glory to glory that God is talking about in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, he said that we would know him from glory to glory. That glory that he's talking about is marriage. That glory that he's talking about is his order that was knocked out of place in the Garden of Eden. See, a lot of people think that sin is what messed up everything. And ultimately, the goal of the enemy was to get us into sin. But before sin happened, there was out of position. And so before sin ever entered into the camp, there was some things out of position. They were not in the right places. It was placement. So submission is not listening to a man tell you what to do. It's not this thing that the church has made it. Submission is placement under God. Everything that we do is unto God. Yeah. And so there's a placement and hierarchy in the kingdom where it's from glory to glory. And it's talking about marriage. It says that just as Christ has died for the church, a man has to die for his wife. A man does not care he cares about the things of the world once he gets married, how he may satisfy his wife. That's what God told the man. But see, right now, you don't have men dying for their wife like Christ died for the church. You don't have men being in committed relationships. You don't have men taking responsibility for us for what they're supposed to be doing. So it's knocked us out of place, and now we're taking responsibility of the households. But when we get on our faces as women and we begin to pray, that's when the sons of the earth will manifest themselves so that they can start taking responsibility for us. So, yes, I do believe that there is a time and a place to be in God and to be waiting and be content in him. When Paul was talking to the church, he was talking about being content in our finances, not going out and wanting things that you didn't have right then, because they were a church who envied. They had a problem with envy. They had a problem with jealousy and things like that during that time. So these letters that he was writing to the church at that time, he was giving them an example saying, see, I'm out here on missions. I'm out here, doing evangelistical work, and I'm content with that. I want you to also be content with where you're at. And so I believe we can also use that passage in this matter as well. But I don't know. I think for me, I truly believe that when families come back together, that it's going to stop a lot of crime. It's going to stop a lot of our communities being broken. The communities are broken because the families are broken. And I believe that that's where God wants us to work really hard at building back up, is the family.
Right. No, yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. No, it really does. I mean, it does make sense. I understand that. I just think that sometimes too, that I guess there's a generation where we're so future minded on what's next and not really embracing right where we are. Because even in this moment, like, we got here for a reason, even as it relates to families. I'm definitely an advocate of family. I believe in structure. I believe there's an order. I mean, definitely in just being a woman of God. I truly believe, God has an order. I believe too that we've gotten here by some measure, and we have to start. It's almost like you have to start how a pebble, kind of starts a wave. It's, you have to begin right where you are, and not just thinking about what we can get to, whether it's a relationship in the future, or material things, or anything of, whatever's futuristic. I believe we have vision. I'm a woman of vision. I believe that. But I do believe that even for me personally, I can say that it was living in the future so much that I believe a lot of things didn't manifest the way that they should, because I wasn't being almost like not satisfied in staying there. I'm saying not being happy where I am in this moment where I am. So right now, be happy, because it's you. Be grateful. And it's more so with the gratitude part. Like, be grateful for what you have now. Like, thank you, God, for what's to come. I'm so, I'm very grateful for that. However, in this space, I just think that that's kind of, that gratitude is what then ushers in what's welcoming those things to come. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So no, I definitely, as it relates to family, that's one of the areas, and we can segue into that topic, as it relates to family. My grandmother, she definitely was, a woman of faith, family, and community. And so she taught us a lot about that. And I wanted to ask, I definitely know family is important to you. You talked about structure. And so how do we get back to that? That what you're talking about, like even us working with one another, because that, I believe that's an issue, not really being there for one another, and kind of how family was back in the day. We had they didn't have to be related to us to even chasten us, back before. It was where you got in trouble before you got home, and then when you got home, they made sure they were going to let your folks know. So you were getting, there was a community, it was a village. So how do we, even as an African American community, as a community as a whole, how do we get back to that village?
We have to get back to unity, because you have so many people going off on their own ideas. You know, you got people worshiping the universe when you could very easily look to the person who created the universe.
Right. Now that's good. Yeah.
You know, like things are contaminated.
Right.
It's contaminated. And so in Psalms 133, it says that God commands a blessing where the brethren are unified.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to walk in that blessing, in that blessed place, then we're going to have to come together. And it's not going to be my opinion. It's not going to be your opinion. It's going to have to be the word of God.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be us sitting down, coming together and pulling this word of God out and really going by what it says and not just doing what's comfortable. Because even our conversation right now is uncomfortable because we're talking about being married. We are one, like you say, black women, we are one of the top people who are not married. Black women are single, the most educated, and that's a problem for me. Because we deserve to be married. We're good women.
That's right.
It's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable conversation to sit up here and say, see, what the enemy wants us to do is to ignore the fact that we do want to be wives. And that's why I say there's been a lie. That we have to identify the lie. And that is, that's why I on purpose post on my social media about being married and about a husband and about being a wife, because it's uncomfortable for me. It's very uncomfortable for me, but you would think that I'm confident in it as much as I talk about it. But I'm not. I'm walking out what God has put in me and told me. You are more than enough. You are a good woman. You're a good woman to the man. You're a good woman to your children. We are good enough. And the enemy has told us a lie. We have got to uncover and identify this lie, which is that we should not look forward to marriage. It is a lie. And I do believe in being content. And I do, because God knows, Lord Jesus, that I needed this time by myself. Because I would have told it, whoever God has sent it to me. Because I know that God has assigned a man of God to me to embrace me and love me, and to also embrace and love my children. That's going to take a whole lot of man.
Yeah. But
because he told me to believe for it, now my vision has changed. And I cannot have a vision of somebody just coming in, being my boyfriend, or I can't envision myself dying by myself and me raising all these kids by myself. No, I don't care what my past looked like. I don't care that I can go to corporate America tomorrow with my license that I have and get a job tomorrow. I don't care that I can do all of that anymore. My vision has now changed to, I'm not settling no more for a half a man.
Yeah.
I'm not settling no more. I am going to have a man of God who loves me, who treats me right, and who loves my children, because I am good enough. And it's okay to desire that.
Yeah. No, and that's definitely, that's something to, to have a vision for. And it's whatever the desires of your heart. He definitely said, when we delight ourselves in him, he'll give us the desires of our hearts. And that's the thing, like, basically, like you said, if that's what God told you to believe for, then that's what you're to do,
Right.
And so that's that definitely is the blessing, to be able to keep him first. Because I know even for me, I posted the other day, I said, it was about, I said, but basically it was saying, don't let you think like God, he basically has forgotten about you. Even as relates to being married, because a lot of things that we see, it looks good, that they're married, but they're married and miserable, Exactly. And so it's like, don't look at these pictures, let them fool you to think that God has, his timing is off. Right now he's preparing you, and he has provision, he's protecting you. And so, so that's the blessing to be able to embrace that, and that's what I say. I believe that what God has for me, I believe He hears my desires. He's so into the details of our lives, which is so awesome. He's revealed Himself in deeper ways, even through the Holy Spirit. He truly has revealed Himself to be so great and so grand, but that He's so even in the details of our lives. And so that's just a beautiful thing as it relates to family, and really looking at, like you said, the Bible, getting back to the basics, really, to see what that structure is. What does it look like? What's His thoughts? What's His heart? To really be able to walk it out. So that's beautiful. That's awesome.
That's it. Because I promise you, it is so, and I'm being transparent, it's uncomfortable for me. Because I didn't want a man. Like, does that make sense? I don't want a man. Like,
right.
But it's something that God has told me. I think I shared with you my, where God called me out of service and told me that He was fixing me and changing my last name, and I was going to be married.
Right.
I didn't want to receive that word.
Right.
And so the next day at church, He called me out again and said, "Woman of God, I said you were going to be married."
Right, yeah.
After you done had as many relationships as I have 6 children by 5 different men.
Yeah.
And that's, you don't want a man. You just be like, God, it's just me and you against the world.
Yeah.
And God is like, nope, God told me, this how you gonna know I have my hand on your life, because I'm gonna make you good at what you've always failed at. And that's relationship.
Yeah.
That I'm gonna make you good at what you've always failed at.
Yeah. But that's a powerful, even that, just with you sharing that too, someone needs to hear that, to know that even in the midst of, because for you to have, like right now, like you said, I didn't want to have to believe that. I didn't want that for me, because, society basically would say that you shouldn't even desire that. And I think that because God is
you
so
had enough, girl.
Right, like God is so distant from what is the norm or what should be expected. He's just like, that's not even how I roll. He's like, I don't really care what it looks like. I'm saying this for you. And that's why, with that, someone else needs to hear that this is possible. If this is what, and it will happen for you in that way, because someone needs to see you win. To know that it's possible for them, in the area of relationships. And just like you said, that's an area you have been challenged in. And he's just so loving to come, and manifest Himself, in that way in the relationship, like how you have, where you are right now, just for Him to show up. It's because He said, I'm going to show myself strong. Because others they're already doubtful. They're already saying this is a no-win situation. And you got to know, when it comes to death, that don't even matter to Him. Because He's like, I can raise, what is that? Death.
And that's it. Like, you're speaking to me. That is it. He's like, this look impossible to everybody around you because of, what you look like. That stigmatism.
Yeah.
But watch what I'm about to do in your life. Watch what I'm about to do for you.
Yes.
And it's going to be a big deal to me, because I'm a big deal to God.
That's awesome.
And so whatever He does for me is a big deal to me. You know what I'm saying? It may not be big to somebody else, but it's going to be big for me. Because I'm telling you, sister, I would fire a man in a minute. Because I have, like I said, I have my own stuff.
Yeah.
No, submit to what? No, sir. And
Right.
God, I'm just telling you the truth. I would fire them in a minute. But can I tell you that this past couple of years, while I've been in that period of God remaking me and remolding me and softening my heart, He gave me the assignment. You're going to birth out a prayer ministry, and you're going to soften the hearts of women. But He's taken me through a process that has just melted my heart. He's given me a new heart. When my husband gets me, girl, he gonna be like, where you been all my life? Because let me tell you, God done did a number on me. Because I would fire you in a minute. Because I ain't have to have you. I ain't have to keep you, and I ain't have to put up with nothing what you was talking about.
Right.
That was just me. So it made that type of attitude, it made me go through a lot of relationships. I didn't have the prayer life that I have right now.
Wow. Yeah.
But
no, that's
my
good.
experiences has birthed out prayer in me. It's birthed out an intercessor in me. Watching my children, come into who they're supposed to be in God. It's just birthed out a new me.
That's perfect. No, that's great. That's awesome. Well, we're gonna to segue into a segment we call Mother-Daughter Bonds, and I want to reiterate and kind of do a plug here. I have officially become a published author, so I'm super excited about that. And the book is entitled "This Relationship Matters," and it's 7 keys to building healthy mother-daughter bonds, and it's a mother's perspective. And here are just a few, reviews of what others are saying. And this first one is, "This Relationship Matters" is a powerful tool to reconnect mothers and daughters. Author Latasha Humphrey does an excellent job of organizing and explaining common mother-daughter issues and offering wise solutions. Read this book to strengthen one of the most important relationships you have in your life. And then the other one I'll share right now, it says, "I read this so quickly and really enjoyed it. I don't even have a daughter, and I found myself really thinking and applying. Perfect prescription for mothers and daughters, but the wisdom applies to so many different aspects of life and relationships in general." And so I'm just really, super excited about the different reviews that have come in. And we definitely will have more information down the line as it relates to the book launch coming up next month. But in that, with the mother-daughter bond segment, it's a series of questions that I would like to ask you in this segment, and it really helps to encourage conversations among women and girls and mothers and daughters. And so, and I also just believe it's a good way for our audience to get to know our guests even more. So, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Well, the first question is, what has your daughters taught you about yourself?
She has taught me, looking at her is looking at me sometimes. Like, I have 5 daughters. I said that before. I have 5 daughters and 1 son. And when I'm correcting them on something, God literally has me stand back and say, everything that's in your children derived from somewhere. Their behaviors, how they think, how they operate, it came from somewhere. And so I'm always looking at them to see, okay, before I discipline them or get on to them about something, let me see if that came from me. And so one of the things that I really struggled with was I'm a strict parent, but I'm also a really good parent. I give allowances, and we have a lot of fun. We take vacations every summer, so I feel like I've earned the right to be a little strict. And I'm a single mom, so I'm kind of cut and dry. And I noticed how hard I was. Like, if they didn't write their papers neatly and they rushed through it, guess what? We're doing it over. And you're going to redo it. So now I'm a little bit, softer with the younger kids. Not too much softer, but my delivery is just different. Because I have children that are, adult, and then I have children that are small. Now I can look at how the older kids turned out and how firm they are and how sharp they are with each other and with the younger kids. And I'm like, why are you acting like that? And so they have taught me to soften up, to not be so sharp and firm with everything, and to just, love was always there, but I think they've taught me how to just listen better, just listen more.
Okay. And so the first the first chapter, in the book, it basically says it all starts with you self-love. And one of the affirmations in it says, I choose to love me first and allow God's love to manifest in my life. I am open to love my daughter in a way that she deserves because I have healthy self-love. And so I wanted to, to even ask you, as it relates to love, How did even your relationship with your mother set the tone of how you relate to your daughters?
Well, my mom loves people unconditionally. Like, I have seen people do my mom's, like, some of the worst things to her. And yet and still, you would never know that this person has literally stabbed her in the back or, done something, like, really bad to her. And you would never know it by looking at how my mom treated that person. Our house was the house that if one of my cousins, like somebody's family was going through a breakup or somebody, auntie and uncle had a fight or somebody was going through a divorce, my parents' house was the house that they came to. My mom and my stepdad were the people who took in anybody who needed help or gave away dishes, clothes, whatever. So she has such a given spirit of just not her things, but of herself, and a forgiving spirit that it has really, we can be taught things in our life, but when we actually see somebody walk it out, it does something else for us. And so as my daughter, and I relate to my oldest daughter because, the questions are, for, like, the question you're asking me is for somebody who has experienced a little bit. When I talk to my daughter about forgiveness and about how to press in her own life, I'm not just telling her to do that because it sounds good. I'm telling her that because I've seen my mama do it. I saw her mama do it, my grandmother, and I have also done it. So this is like I believe it's just a gift to just continue to walk in love, continue to forgive, and to treat people like you want to be treated, no matter if they're treating you that way or
not. Okay. And I wanted to even ask you with that, like you talked about the forgiveness, your mother being able to forgive, to the point where you were just like, how did that work? With some of the things that she may have forgiven. Have you ever had any type of conversation with her because you didn't really understand, even as it relates to why she forgave or why she made a choice to do something in the past?
Absolutely. As a young girl, I was molested by a family member. And for a long time, I was angry with her. Not the person who molested me. I was angry with my mama because she forgave that person.
Yeah.
And I had zero understanding of that. Here you are, you're supposed to be the person. Your parents are supposed to protect you, and y'all are not even like this. I need somebody to stand up for me. I was 15. Yes, I was 15 at the time. And to me, this was like, no, how can you do this? So I stayed mad at my mom for years. I never disrespected her, and we always, kept a good friendship, and she never stopped being there for me. Like, she was there for me. She'd been in the delivery room when I had all the kids. She's taken off of work like 2 and 3 weeks at a time after I have my kids, because my family is very serious. When you have a baby, you don't come outside for that first month. Not unless it's like an emergency. You don't go outside. And so because of that, she took care of me, even in the midst of my anger and my unforgiveness for her, quote unquote, not protecting me. But through her forgiveness and her walking out love, I began to walk out love after I gave my life to the Lord in my early 20s. And when I really started walking out love and God started showing me this person who had molested me, he kept talking to me saying, break the cycle, break the cycle. It's a stronghold. And this is a family member that was married into the family. So it wasn't like my bloodline, but it was a stronghold that was over his family, over his side of the family. And when I started looking at everybody and started talking to some of them cousins on the other side, I was like, okay, so he's not the only one doing this. God began to reveal to me that men had molested him as a young boy, had him, performing oral sex on them and raping him. And so at that moment when God showed me, and I knew that because of the type of man that he was, he would never come out and say, this is what happened to me and this is why I'm messed up. I began to pray for him. And he ended up giving his life to God. I never discussed, it's amazing how we become prisoners of our own victimizing circumstances. Like, we're the victim in the situation, but we can never talk about what they did to us because we don't want to embarrass the family. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like, what is that? Why do we do that to each other? Why do we do that? We can't even come out and tell our real testimonies about what God brought us through because we don't want to embarrass the family.
Yeah, that's kind of deep though. But that's what, we've heard that so many times just in the past, why people didn't come out or why they didn't say something or, just whatever the case may be, because you're protecting the family. But how do you, like you said, how do you recover? How do you heal? How are you able to move forward? How are you able to forgive?
I think the only way you can forgive is that when you really come into that place of knowing God and you realize I'm never the victim. I'm always the victor in every situation. And so no matter what situation you're facing in life, whether it be rape, molestation, somebody, really taking you through a bad relationship, you look at them and you start saying, dang, they have an open door in their life. They really let the enemy use them.
Yeah.
But thank God that I'm breaking that cycle. I'm breaking that curse, because I could have continued. I could have been promiscuous. I could have continued to stay in my shell, because I thought if I don't wear earrings, if I don't wear like an elaborate hairstyle, or I wear dark colors all the time, that he can't see me. I literally thought that.
Yeah.
And it's something that, I did as a defense mechanism. I could have stayed in that bondage.
Yeah.
But instead, I got free, and I became the victor in that situation, and I turned the tables on the enemy and began to pray for the person who was bound.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
That's pretty powerful though, to be able to get to that side, and that's like even the with the book, it's on there about that forgiveness. It's the bonus chapter, as it relates to forgiveness serves as the glue, and what you just said with being able to full circle, even forgive that person, and in a lot of cases, forgive the person, forgive your mother, your daughters. That's a part of the affirmation in it, but also forgiving God. Because sometimes, we don't think about it, but no, being able to forgive and say, I forgive you for allowing it, just period, and being able to, or when we have those temper tantrums and we're mad at him, that we're able to move past it. And so it's a real thing, but we don't really want to admit that at times, that we are mad at God. It's like, no, like you need to research that out.
About it like that.
Yeah.
You say you mentioned that in the book where God, like forgiving God.
Yes, I the affirmation in it is basically, because I said we're gonna mess up and we're gonna have to ask for forgiveness, period. And let me I want to quote that. It says, how many of you know, since we are not perfect, then we will mess up from time to time and need to ask for forgiveness from God, others, and most importantly, ourselves. And it says, in any relationship, forgiveness serves as the glue. However, in abusive situations, forgiveness serves as the final resolve, because reconciliation is not nor needs to be the desired outcome in most cases. Because that's the fact of the matter, that even after that, like you said, it may have been where, okay, we see where the cycle that person needs to break the cycle, but that necessarily, because for me early on, I didn't understand that forgiveness didn't always mean reconciliation. And I had to learn that later, that you can forgive people, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily stay in your circle. Your sphere. That doesn't mean they'll stay there. That means that I forgive you. And I do that, and I'm able to release you and keep it moving. In those cases, especially if it is abusive, and it doesn't have to be just physical. It can be mentally. It could be whatever the case may be. Using or abusing someone. And whatever the case may be is what I'm saying. But and so even with that, the question kind of was, if you ever blamed anyone else, including God, for anything, have you been able to forgive them and move forward?
That's good.
So it's that, just being able to do that. And I just think sometimes we don't, because it's not definitely if you've been you're part of the church, it's not the proper thing to do, so to speak, for you to blame God. You didn't blame God. Okay, come on, let's be real. A lot of us, we didn't understand certain things, and we possibly have. And have you forgiven him so that you could press forward and be healed?
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Like for you to say that you put that in the book, have you forgiven God? It made me start. It just really made me start thinking, if I still have a question of why me, Lord, then you haven't really forgiven all the way. You haven't really stopped questioning God if you're still asking why me.
Yeah. And that's in any situation. Like you said, yours, it was, molestation. Well, other things, something as even with the marriage part, how many of us, just like you said, there are some of us that we have resolved that, well, fine, I won't even believe for a husband. And I said, I've been there. So I know, that's what I'm saying. I do get that, but I think some of it too was not even being content. And he said, if I give you who you desire, let's be real. If I give you who you desire, or if I give someone to you, if I allow him to find you and then give you what you're praying for, will he become a God? And if he's going to become a God, I don't even want to put you together because it's going to mess both of y'all up.
Oh, glory. Hallelujah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, some of mine, I feel like it was some of my wrongdoing, just not handling certain things properly. But some of it was so thinking, oh, when this happens, then I will be complete, or then I will be looked at by other people in a certain way. Well, okay, if it's not if you don't have the right motive behind that, why would he allow you to mess up one of his men of God? Because he's not going to bring you, junk. Just like you said, he's going to be a man who loves God first. He knows how to honor God. He knows how to love you, because then he loves you like Christ loved the church. And then he will love everything connected to you, whether it's your children or for those who may not have children. He's going to love everything about who you are. So with that, why would he bring and allow him to come into your space when you will make him a God, and then it's going to put him in danger?
And you become codependent on the relationship instead of dependent on God.
On God. And so that's going to make him, he could fall into, pride. He could fall into, because you're then depending or wanting him to do it, or put him at odds with, okay, well, God has to be first, having to figure out how he needs to do stuff. So I just say, with it really has to be both of you coming together 100%, where you're able to join together, yes, for purpose, but that God is truly the center of everything that you do. And you have no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
God is our source. Let's not get it twisted. We are coming together to do the work of the Father and the will of the Father. But he is truly the source of every blessing, and he is who we look to. And exactly. That's all I'm saying. Like, if it's not that, it really can't be. And then if you're even, like I said, with being able to forgive God, to get past that, I had to get past that, because I had my tantrums where I was just like, well, fine. Like, I don't even want to, it's not going to happen. Because it hasn't happened in this amount of time. I've seen broken marriages. I've seen marriages that portray they're good, but they're not. But God really began to show me good marriages then, where there are some good ones. And be able to see that it's possible. Because I think some of the times we can't believe for what we don't see that's possible. Yeah. Like, even if it's, we say, I believe this, but it's when when you see it manifested. Oh, I can see that. Like, that's for real. Oh, okay. I can believe for that, because it just it puts it at another level,
Right.
So I just, but I did. I had to forgive him. And that's what I wrote in there. I had to forgive God. I had to forgive myself, because I felt like, okay, well, you made some choices. Okay, but God is like, I'm not even concerned with that. Why are we still talking about that? And even forgiving others, relationships that didn't work out, forgiving my mom for certain things that I felt like she should have taught me and didn't. Like, she taught me a lot of great things, and she's a powerful woman. She definitely is, a woman who is strong. She did a lot of things, but there were some things, like, say, finances or money management, things like that, that she didn't even really know about. But I went through a period where I couldn't understand, like, why I didn't know this, or why am I learning about investing and good credit and savings later? Like, I know nothing about that. I've had to learn the hard way, and you're wanting to blame others. And the fact of the matter is, if they gave you all they knew to give, that's what they could give.
Right.
Get past it. Go to God, go to God, and be willing to move forward from where you are now. But embrace where you are. Like, identify it. So yeah, but that forgiveness, that was pretty huge. I mean, I feel like you have to actively do that every day. And you choose to do it.
Something you'll be experiencing will trigger what should have been in place, and you wouldn't even be going through what you're going through. So then it makes you kind of trail back to where you came from.
Right.
And so that comes with, I think it comes with humility.
Yeah.
It's just taking responsibility, and just saying, you know what? I take responsibility, full responsibility from this day forward. And that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
That's what my business, would be Lifted Movement. That's one of the things that I really drive into people, is take responsibility for who you are right now, today. And then when you said, look at the map, where are you at? I saw a map in my head. And it was like, where are you on your roadmap to life? Do you have a vision? Do you have a plan? And like that part, it still sticks with me, that you said forgive God. That, for some reason, that is very powerful to me. Forgive God, because we talk about forgiving each other and everybody else, but we don't talk about that. And then the transparency, I would be so uncomfortable, and I'm sure it was uncomfortable for you to even put in there, like, I wish my mom would have taught me this.
Yeah, because that came, it's so funny about that, Yumika, like, that chapter, I had the 7 done, how you thinking, like, okay, that's it. But the thing was, like, in the Holy Spirit, he said, forgiveness. He's like, this is a bonus key. You're going to keep the 7, that'll be the 7 keys, but within it, this is going to be the bonus one. And even in writing that, because I was writing, I was being obedient. My mother, she has the book now. And I don't know if she got to that part yet, but it wasn't even like he was saying, get a clearance to share that. Like, he told me to share it, and I didn't have to get an okay. It's respectful, with how it's even put in there. But that was a moment where and even to be able to share that, I am a private person. Like, I know I can talk with people, and it's like you can be
transparent. But for you, like, that's empowering to me to know that you've literally published a book that tells the truth, because that's something that I still struggle with, is protecting the family, protecting the people who didn't protect me, because I don't want them to have to relive their decisions. Like, the only reason why I think, we want to share stuff like that is to help somebody else, is to genuinely help somebody else, but we cripple our testimonies because, we want to protect those people. Yeah. But that's empowering that you did it, you wrote it.
Right. And that was the thing. I mean, just like you said, though, now it's a way, definitely. But I just believe when he really says this is how you do it, And this is how you to share it, because it's your truth regardless. And I think that freedom comes when you are able to share that, and every gory detail, like I talk about in there, even with the girls, and the ones that I talk with, the young women, they're wanting their mothers, to share about their experiences. When they were young, young women, young girls, when they were in middle school, high school, and it's being able to share that, but they don't want every gory detail. So they're not asking you, okay, well, when did this happen? And I want to know all about every relationship, and I want to know this and this. No, I mean, what they want to know is that you can relate to them now. With the climate change, it's a different time. It's all of those things that are different. But can you relate to me without judging me? Can you at least say, and don't try to paint this perfect picture, because that's not true. Your life, I know, especially like you even talked about with your eldest daughter. The fact of the matter is, no matter what the other babies know, she knows a lot. She knows she was there. So it's like, why try to make, because then what you would teach her is, and other women who maybe they haven't shared, are they trying to keep this image? But I'm like, they would, like the ones who were there and they know, and they really can recall stuff. How do you do that when they're like, I know the story? Like, you can share however you want to tell yourself that maybe you're trying to fool yourself. But you know what? It's even to be able to say to them, when you recognize it and you say, you know what? I haven't been honest with you. I haven't been honest with myself, because I felt like I had to do this. And that's where I just, in writing it, that's what he told me, to be transparent in different areas. And I could sit and make it be this, this book where I'm such this strong warrior. And don't get me wrong, in it, I feel like I'm a strong woman. I'm intelligent. I believe my family is a good family. At the same time, we go through just like anybody else. Like, even with this, I felt like I was able to write it because even my daughter and I, we've had some challenges in our relationship. But before that, though, or even not being ready to talk about those things, I think that I wasn't even qualified to write it, because it was like, are you going to tell the truth? Or are you going to paint it where you all are, you're not going through anything, or you haven't gone through
it, though. We got to start having these conversations about mothers and daughters. We have got to put this on the forefront of the issues that we're experiencing now, because it's a big deal.
It is. No, it really is. And, so I said, this is why, he has me writing the book. I'm very grateful for it. And, I definitely will lead the charge in that way. And however he wants me to do with the curriculum, with, as we move forward and do the workshops and those different things, I think that this is just a time. He's using me for such a time as this. And I'm grateful to be able to be on the side where I can share and not feel some type of way. About it, or not feel as though, well, if I say that, then what? He definitely has prepared me. I've read through it 100 times, before we even got to the published part. So it's kind of like going through it, seeing how it looks, and I know it verbatim. I mean, I know what it is, what's in it, and was able to share it with even being that person of transparency. And those who know me, that's what I'm saying, like those who know me, they can really attest to, she's not one to share. My mom, she'll say it. She's a very private person. But with something about when the Holy right, and it's something about when the Holy Spirit steps in the room, though, because when he says this is what it is, and I use the phrase, and I've been saying it, the Holy Spirit ain't no joke. And I'm for real. Like, when he's like, okay, you need to break through all of that. We're going to help you heal through it. So when you talk about it, you can talk and be very open, and not be where you still trying to hide. Are you feeling ashamed? Are you feeling, no, let's talk about it. Because I do want to help some people be free. So
we got to talk about it. Because even with just you and I on, this interview right now, we both experience hardships with our daughter.
Yeah.
And so there's other women who are suffering and need to know that that relationship does matter. It
Yeah.
matters. It matters for where our daughters are, who the women that they're going to grow up and be. That relationship matters, and we have got to get it together.
Absolutely. No, we really do. Okay. Well, perfect. Well, so there are a few questions, and like I said, these you may answer kind of. It may just be a one-liner, but
Okay.
what book most influenced you?
The book that has most influenced me is The Power of a Praying Woman by Archbishop Duncan Williams.
Okay.
Are you familiar with him? I believe he is out of Africa, and he is known for being a prayer warrior. And it really goes into depth about, women and the power of prayer through the woman and how God hears us.
Okay. Perfect. Well, what is your favorite kind of food?
My favorite kind of food is all food. I love, I would have to say salads, because I can dress them up any type of way. I can have a Mexican salad. I can, put some corn and some salsa and hamburger on it, make it Mexican. I can have an Asian salad where you can get them little crunchy Asian noodles and some ginger dressing and some, teriyaki chicken. I can have Caesar salad. I like salad because I put so many different things on them that they don't even be salads no more.
Okay. Perfect. Well, what is something every woman should try once in her lifetime?
I would say every woman should try doing a longevity group activity with other women. Like, every woman should experience a vacation with other women that maybe they don't know everybody in that situation, but that they maybe they have one friend who has another friend that they don't know. But I always say that we should experience stuff and get to know new people. And I think that's a vacation is a good way to do that. But if you can't go on a vacation, because, we all working on our finances, I'm trying to stick to this budget.
Right.
Then maybe you can get together to network, and a friend introduce you to another friend, and y'all all meet up and go eat with each other. But just, to the modern word is networking, but really it's making friends and making family and building a sisterhood.
Okay. Well, where would you like to visit if you could go anywhere?
Costa Rica. Well, I don't know after them hurricanes, though.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, Costa Rica, I'm going to have to figure out another place just in case. But you know what? I bet you some folks got some nice travel properties over there for sale now. So, maybe an opportunity.
Right, to go. Okay. What superpower would you like to have?
Superpower. I don't know. It's hard for me to put my mind to that place. I think we are super women already. We do have superpower. Like a woman's intuition, and we know answers before the question is even asked usually. So I would like for God to just increase that intuition in me to where that wisdom is there, to know things before I ever even need to know it.
Okay. What's the most important lesson that you've learned within the last year?
Prayer changes things. I've seen them do it.
Okay.
And that has been from a personal experience of learning to shut my mouth. I would say in a nutshell, talking to people is necessary because we have to communicate with each other. It's necessary. It's needed. But talking to God is what brings change to the situation.
Okay. And if you could talk to one person from history, who would it be and why?
person from history. Any history?
Yes.
I would have to say Deborah out of the Bible, because she was a woman, but she also led, and somehow she balanced out the two.
Okay.
And she did such a great move of God during that time that put a mark in history.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're going to move into our closing segment, and it's called Matters of the Heart Moment. And I wanted to ask you, if you could speak to your 4-year-old self, what would you say to her?
Wow. So it's funny that you have that question, because just a little over a year ago, I kept having a vision of God, like a man of God, coming up to my little girl who is young, about that age. She's younger. She's a little girl. And because I kept having this vision, I started coaching her. The man of God walked up to her in the vision and said, "What do you want God to do for you, little girl?" And so I kept coaching my daughter. I said, when this man of God come, because I was learning about the prophetic gift that's in me and how God shows me things. And so I was like, okay, I know this is one of those visions. Something is about to go down. It's about to happen. I'm going to be ready this time, because God is showing me this. And, I'm really learning about this gift that he's placed inside of me. And so I'm coaching my daughter, and I'm telling her, when this man of God walks up on you, I want you to tell him what you want God to do for you. He's going to ask you, what do you want from God? That's what he's asking you. And I told her specifically, I said, don't ask for a house. Don't be asking for me no car. I said, think about what you want God to add, what you want from God. Well, when she turned around and posed the questions to me, she was like, Mama, I don't know how. What can I ask him besides a house? I want you to have, your house back. I want you to have all your cars back. She started asking for these material things and stuff. And I was like, I don't know. So I had to think about it. So I would tell my 4-year-old self, my little girl self, don't stop believing in what he has placed inside of you. Because now at my age right now, in real life, a man of God came to me who was a prophet, and the way that he's internationally known, like, called me on my personal phone and to give me a word, under the direction of the Holy Spirit. He has many people who partner with his ministry, many people who have come to him that he's been connected to. But me, out of all the people, when he had called, other people that had supported his ministry and everything, because he's just that type of man of God, to where he's not that kind that's like untouchable. He's going to tell you personable words. He's going to do what God told him to do. He's not going to get in trouble with God trying to be standoffish. And so he's the type of minister that connects with people. And he was calling some of the people that connected with the ministry and was telling them what, God had for him to say to them. But when he got to me, he couldn't get a word from God while he was on the phone with me. And he said, God is just telling me to have you write down your 3 most earnest prayer requests. And so I went on a fast immediately for 7 days. And on the 8th day, I wrote the request and I sent it to him. And now I know, 8 is the number of new beginnings. And so in that prayer request was my wish for Be Lifted movement, my prayer for that, my prayer for my family, my prayer for my finances. But it was not, I want this amount of money. It was a certain thing that I wanted God to do. And so all of those prayer requests that I sent it to him as a man of God, but I really made my prayer request to God. I would tell my 4-year-old self, don't stop believing in the things that you see as a little girl. Because although I didn't know what I was looking at from when I was a little girl, I believe that God puts our passions and our purposes in us when we're children. He's always talking to us. We're always thinking these amazing things as children. And somewhere along the line, our hearts get hardened, and we forget all that stuff, all those fuzzy thoughts we had when we looked up in the clouds and wondered, how did the birds fly and how did the trees move in the wind? We forget about all of that. And so God told me when I wrote that request to God, he said, have childlike faith. I would tell my 4-year-old self, never lose your faith in the amazing and impossible things of God. Always keep believing and thinking outside of the box.
Good stuff. Well, who inspires you?
My children. Next to God, of course. But my children inspire me so much.
Okay. What is the best pearls of wisdom that you've ever received?
Best pearls of wisdom. I would say, to take it one day at a time. Okay. That when you live for today, you hear God for what you need to do today. You don't beat yourself up about what you didn't do yesterday, because that's regret. And you don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow has enough of worries on its own, and that's in the Word. But to just take it one day at a time.
Okay. Well, do you have any last-minute comments that you like to make?
Well, I think for me, I know I had looked at a couple of things about the book, but I really feel like that is probably one of my reasons for being connected to you. You know, I have 5 daughters. And so in closing, I just want to say that I am so thankful to God for connecting me with you. You know, like I said, I felt like, you know, this was coming up to one of those times where I had a vision, you know, about being on Oprah show. And I feel like you are the Oprah of this time. I just, you know, I think we take the small beginnings of things, and we may even be taking this interview lightly, or us being on the phone, you know, in our conversations before we came together, you know. But God had that conversation on purpose. Mm-hmm. He's doing the interview on purpose. He's so intentional. Yes. And so in closing, I would just say that we cannot even, I just want to be in agreement that what God did today in our interview, that there's so much more to come after this. I just feel that in my spirit. I just feel like there's so much more to come after this. And I can't even thank you enough for taking out your time and letting me come on, you know, your show that was named after your grandmother. Like, that's a big deal to me. I'm not just saying that. It's a big deal to me. And so I'm very humbled, and I'm very thankful for being here.
Absolutely. No, Yamika, thank you so much for sharing that. It really does mean a lot, and I definitely am in agreement that whatever God will do, you know, with us together, that you know, He definitely gets the glory out of it. So I'm looking forward to it. And I just thank you so much for being, you know, transparent and just being willing to share with us. And I humbly thank you for, you know, even what you're saying, you know, with Oprah, like you said, you know, just for this time. And you had mentioned that in our conversation, you know, prior. And I just, it's something to appreciate, you know, with it, but to humbly say thank you for that.
Definitely. We both say thank you to God, because we just don't know what He's up to.
Right. But just look forward to it, you know, and that's the thing, like being open and being willing to be used by Him, and really be in that space of surrender. And so sister, I thank you for being with us today, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And our goal at the Flora Pearl Foundation is to always be a blessing to all of those that we come in contact with by operating with the spirit of excellence. We want to thank you all so much for listening today. And you can visit our website at www.florapearlfoundation.org. And we also want to say, just with the book is This Relationship Matters. It is by me, Latasha J. Humphrey. And so I just welcome you all to purchase it. We have the 3 spaces. It is Amazon, also Barnes & Nobles, as well as Books A Million. And also you can visit my website at www.latashajhumphrey.com. And so we look forward to spending time with you all each week, and we will talk to you soon.